Andrew MacLean, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Chris.
You got it. Cool, cool dog pictures you got behind your head there.
Thanks. I did it myself. No, I didn't. Yeah, I'm in this Airbnb, and they're dog lovers might like myself, but I do think they might like dogs more than me because the whole Airbnb is covered in dog portraits, and I know they've got like a dozen dogs, so I kind of think that these are probably actually their dogs.
Oh, really?
That's my guess. I don't know. Maybe they're buying portraits of other people's dogs, but there's
That's interesting.
Some of them are portraits. Others are definitely purchased dog art. So there's got to be in this house. I'm guessing there's there's probably like 15 pieces of dog art, and most of them are portraits by this same person.
Wow.
They're not bad.
That makes me want to get a house and just put pictures of myself all over, just like cover the walls in pictures.
I think I'm going to get a dog house for my dog and cover the inside of her house with portraits of me there.
Yeah. That's a good plan, man. So what are we doing? Let's talk about Snarlagon, man.
Okay.
Man, this is so people know your work, probably mainly from Headlopper, before Headlopper, Apocalyptic Girl. Headlopper's been going on for a while now. It's like super awesome. You decided to take a break from it and just work on something completely different. And so often there's books out there that just look like the same thing that the creator's been doing since the beginning, which is fine, because if people love what you're doing and you love what you're doing and you're fine doing that, awesome. Mm-hmm. With Snarlagon, you took a almost complete left turn. I feel like you got a little into it with like the textures and the whole vibe of it. Did you just feel like you wanted to do something like totally different than what you had been doing previously?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I like to experiment, and I do feel like that's kind of how I and probably most people grow or learn a new skill, is by trying something new. But like you said, it's so easy when you're like on the job to feel like I've got to stay consistent, so there's not a ton of room. I try to give myself space, and I think I do, to experiment a little bit, but until you like jump on a totally different, title, you don't really feel like you can take a sharp left turn. And so when I knew I wanted to do this, a kind of love letter to old kaiju movies for forever, in between like the last 3 volumes of Headlopper, I'd been aching to do it, even just a short comic. Originally I was like, I'll do 15 pages or whatever. But anyways, I was also just like, well, this is a good chance to experiment with some of the different tools that I enjoy or want to experiment with, different paper and everything. So yeah, I didn't like Headlopper is almost, it was 90% brushwork, and I used a quill on this, and
use a quill on this.
Yeah. So the line is not much taper to it. It's a very dead line. And then I used gouache thinned out to like a watercolor consistency for all the gray tones, and then of course I did a lot of stippling with it as well. And there's very little cross hatching in it. Like Headlopper through the volumes, Headlopper gets more and more cross hatching, and I was like, I just wanted to mix it up and try new things and kind of experiment.
So okay. All right. Okay. I see. So the line like here is a quill.
Yep.
What kind of quill were you using on that?
Like a G-nib.
Oh, okay.
Tachikawa, I think, is the brand name on the one I was using.
Yeah. So they don't have too much give, so that's why the line's a little bit deader than.
It's a pretty
like a Hunt's or something like that.
Right. Yeah. There's not much taper to it. I mean, you can get a little bit out of it, but it's also not, that's not exactly what I was going for either. I was like,
no, right.
Yeah. Having spent so much time using a brush and kind of, you know, even though I feel like I kind of use it in a pretty dead way, there isn't real extreme tapers on it. You know, I wanted to go the other direction here and have it be, you know, pretty dead.
Yeah. You so this looks like the Cinerama Dome like lettering, you know, like you really captured this like 50s ish kind of vibe with the just the even the lettering on the thing.
Yeah, that's
And
what I wanted. I wanted to feel
yeah,
like you're like on set, you know, rather than I wasn't trying to really capture, you know, capture monsters in our space. I was trying to capture like, you know, the feeling of watching one of those old movies.
right. Which is why like even the tanks and the cars and stuff, they look like little toys, you know, they're like
Yeah,
as rudimentary as possible because,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, supposed to be kind of like a guy in a suit, right?
Yeah, that's how I ended up leaning into doing more and more of that stippling too. Is, you know, I was drawing, you know, the monsters in these kind of simple, fun shapes, but I was like, you know what, like if I'm really picturing this as I'm trying to draw, you know, an actor in a suit, there it might have these fun shapes, but it would have some texture to it too. So then I was like, I kind of more and more leaned into the stippling to kind of get that effect.
Right. So it's dedicated to the memory of Ray Harryhausen and Ishirǒ Honda. You know, Ray Harryhausen, obviously the stop motion master, you know, who made all the great movies
Yep.
of the like. Did he start in the 50s? Probably, right?
I think it was a little later. I know that like Clash of the Titans was like 81. So I
Yeah,
don't
that
know.
was like one of his last movies, right?
Yeah, so I don't know where he really started.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it was as early as the 50s.
yeah. And Honda obviously was, you know, the creator of Godzilla, or was he just did he direct the just
Yeah,
direct
he
it?
was the director of it. Here's some quick fun fact about the original Godzilla is that Toho had plans to shoot a very different movie that year, and it was going to be shot in a different country. I forget which, and everything was in order. And right before they started shooting it, the country was no longer would let them shoot there. And all of a
Mm,
sudden, so that year. Toho was like, shit, we don't have a movie this year. Like we need to have some revenue. And they were looking at the trades or whatever. And one of Harryhausen's movies, I forget, 20,000, you know, miles to Earth or something.
yeah,
It basically had a monster you know, in a downtown scene or whatever. And
yeah,
it was doing really well. And so they were just like, hey, if this is, you know, obviously King Kong was a really famous movie, much older, but they're like, you know, if this is doing well, if this is what people are watching, like we can do one of these. And so they kind of just pivoted last minute. Someone worked up a script, I can't recall who, and they took a risk on hiring Ishirǒ Honda. And I mean, he turned it into this, you know, whole allegory of, you know, of nuclear weapon testing. Even at the time, I don't think it's a very well known fact, but you know, we think of, you know, America dropping bombs on like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but they're also still testing nuclear bombs post-war, and
yeah,
tons of, and they were destroying all kinds of like offshore and in fishing communities in Japan. So like our you know, our nuclear weapons were still wreaking havoc on Japan, and so it's still very much part of their daily life. And so, you know, Ishiro Honda's thinking of this, and he of course famously creates this, you know, allegory of nuclear weapons. But like also he turned it into this. It's like a horror movie, you know. It really he brought so much life to this script and made it this whole, you know, other thing. And he would, you know, go on to do, I don't know, another dozen, you know, kaiju movies over time or something. But anyways, yeah. So, you know, this is my love letter to, you know, old monster movies. So to me, they're, you know, I love kaiju movies. So it seemed appropriate to dedicate it to Honda. But and I actually named my main human character in my Godzilla series Honda as well. And
yeah.
then Ray Harryhausen, he's, you know, he's even a huge part of why I, you know, make Headlopper. Just I always loved stop motion animation. Obviously, I always loved monsters. And so to me, this book is a love letter to those folks.
Yeah, I love how you like really captured the tone of like a 60s movie too, with like a black and white movie. Did you so like it's kind of in this like blue, dark blue color. You didn't draw it in this blue though, right?
No, I did it in grays, and then I took it into Photoshop, and I created an action that would tint it. So then every page I could just click the action.
Yeah.
That way I figured it'll be so much more kind of static, and
Hmm.
throughout every page will have the same kind of tint to it and everything. Um, and I really wanted even the inks of it to have a blue tint to it. And so I thought, I was like, well, if I do this in a combination of like ink and then blue, it'll be like black and blue. And I really wanted it to be all blue. So I decided
Yeah.
to just tint it after the fact.
Well, it gives it this like movie vibe to it, which is great, you know?
I
I
also
think it's
find
way more
blue,
effective than if it was black.
I think so. I also just thought I wanted it to be, it's supposed to just kind of be fun. And I wanted people to feel kind of like relaxed and just find kind of joy in the book.
Hmm.
It's not really serious or anything.
Yeah.
So I just thought that for me, imagining it in all blue felt very calm rather
Yeah.
than like the stark black and white. So I wanted that. I was hoping that the blue would give it a kind of calm feeling, even though it's, monster fights.
Yeah, I think it's successful. I love this kid character too. How he feels sort of like a manga influenced character. So you really do like we're in Hollywood here and stuff. So you got the American cinema vibe going, and then you pull in the Japanese aspect kind of with this kid, which is
Yeah,
fascinating.
he's particularly inspired by old Gamera movies. So
Yeah.
often, since Gamera movies were meant to be for kids, they kind
Hmm.
of, and even some, not just Gamera, like this is other, I think it's Korean, it's called Yongri. There's a lot of these movies. They're supposed to be kids movies, and so they like give the kids way more agency than any kid deserves to have, way more power, way more respect. And so these kids find themselves, with adults and kind of like solving the mysteries of the kaiju. Like, oh, maybe he's allergic to water or something. Like, oh, good thinking, and like
Yeah.
just like absurdities that are just for the, just basically pandering to an audience of children or whatever. And so to me, that's where Joshi comes from, that ridiculousness of, pandering to a child audience. And also I think he's also kind of every kid a little bit, where it's like the kid whose imagination is wild and out of control and just desperately wants to be a superhero and desperately be involved. And so he's a combination of, Gamera movies and just every kid with a big imagination.
Yeah. He was necessary for this story too. It's just like I couldn't imagine the story without this kid.
Well, it's funny. When I started out, I was really picturing, this teen couple here, Mariah and Franklin, as the main characters. But it didn't take long before I was drawing Joshi, and I realized, like, oh, this kid is the funny part. Like,
Yeah.
when I created Headlopper, I'm thinking, oh, it's about Norgal. Yes, it's about Agatha the Severed Head, but it's Norgal's the one who has feet. He's literally carrying, the story or whatever. But Agatha so quickly became everyone's, favorite character because she's so crazy and funny. And I was like 2 or 3 pages in drawing Joshi. I was like, oh, okay, Joshi's gonna be the Agatha of this story. Like, people will gravitate to Joshi more than Snarlagon, more than Mariah, more than Franklin or anybody else.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Man, these spreads that you did are just insane. Like
Thanks, dude.
I'm just dumbfounded, but when I look at them, they're perfect. I don't know what else to say about them. They're like graphically, they're so like simple, but it's almost as if you like had taken a photo of this in some weird way, because it's the perspective is all just right, and I don't know. You really captured something here, man.
I wanted to make a very art indulgent book. So
Yeah.
many times when I'm writing for myself, I'll get to the end of a script and I'm like, I was saving on space and everything, and I literally didn't write a single double page spread, and I just didn't want that to be the case here. I was just like, I'm gonna indulge and I'm gonna put a lot of like, full pages, a lot of double page spreads, because it's about the joy of drawing this stuff.
Yeah. And it really comes across. And I love, so you've got moments here where you have these like handwritten lettering, but then you chose to do like a standard like type set
like
for
like
the
a text font.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like almost like a Warren Comics or something, it would have done that, or like Mad Magazine does that. What was why did you decide to go with that?
I wanted it to be kind of weird. I wanted to stand out. Like, again, I wanted to experiment. I wanted it to feel kind of like more alternative than my like normal comics that I do. So I was like, I always use the same, the same font on all my headloppers, same font that was in Apocalyptic Girl. And I like it because I think it kind of feels close enough to like, my handwriting. But I wanted this again. I just wanted this to be so different than anything else I've done. And I was like, I didn't want it to be all capital letters. I was like, I'm just gonna do this clean. It's just gonna be a very normal font, and it is a very clean, stylish font that I use a lot and really like. But yeah, I just wanted to just do something new, do something different.
Are the word balloons done by hand though?
Yeah, I draw my word balloons on everything. I try to limit how much kind of digital stuff is on there, because to me, like, say a digital sound effect on top of hand drawn stuff, it feels like, or speech bubble, they feel like stickers to me. They feel like it's like something on top. And so anything I can do by hand, which is why you'll still, as you pointed out, you'll still see little bits and pieces of me kind of handwriting in there. I do as much as by hand as I kind of can. I just, all the time that it requires to hand letter is just not worth it. It's several hours extra per page for me. And I still edit, dialogue up until it goes to print. There's always something you can kind of tinker with, make clearer, clear. I always say clarity first. So I often go back and like, all right, if I'm reading this and I'm going to miss something, where's the confusing part going to be? And then I'll try to simplify it if I can. And that's often until the day goes out the door.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. For Three-Headed Pigman, I've been hand lettering it, but not on the page. But then I've been, moving it into it, so that way I have a little bit more control with it. I can't imagine lettering right onto the page. In fact, I can't even imagine putting the bubbles right on the page, because like even though I lay something out and I know what it's supposed to look like, it's always just not exactly, perfect every time. So I never know how much like room I'm going to need for the words or anything like that.
I think it helps that I did hand letter a good handful of comics before I started digitally lettering, but also it's a few things. Like I'll be like, all right, I think it's going to be this big. And then I go, as a rule, I make a guess how big it needs to be. And then I make it bigger. I just give myself extra space. And for me, if there's a bunch of extra space in a bubble, I like that. Like that's a place for like the eye to rest for a second. I don't like it when a speech bubble is packed full. I want there to be a lot of breathing room. So I'm always like, screw it. Like if the speech bubble is, much too big, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, like I've been reading a lot about lettering since I'm doing this, thing. And it's always like a lot of things talk about how there should just be like one letter space around the bubble, between things and stuff. And like that is tight. But like, why is that a rule? Justify that rule for me it doesn't look bad if it's different than that. I
I
just,
want to leave like a quarter of an inch or something. I want it to like really breathe.
yeah. When you lay out your pages, do you have, rules that you stick to in your head or try to stick to? And obviously you can break them when you want to, but like, everybody's a little different. I'm always fascinated to find out like what kind of things that people think of when they're laying out a page.
I mean, a little bit. I try to maximize space. I will break my rules, from time to time, just because you want to just mix it up.
Yeah.
But as a rule, I try to I use very kind of logical and simple ratios. So like most of my things are measured out to like it's measured out to thirds or quarters or halves or something. And
Yeah.
anywhere I can kind of like duplicate a panel size, I will do that. Or if it's like even the page that's mirrored next to it, if there's a panel over there that I think is about the same size, I'll go over and measure. All right, that was 3¼ inches. I'm gonna make this page over here 3¼ inches, just because I think that kind of repetition, it just creates like a uniformity that you don't
Yeah.
even necessarily notice. You kind of feel it. But that's my theory on it. But for the most part, yeah, I'll stick to squares. I'll stick to right angles because time and time again, I think it just maximizes space the best. And so
Yeah.
I go for simple more often than not so that I can just plain fit in clearer drawings that are just easy to read. And if I can, I'm going to put my speech bubbles and captions just at the top. Like and as much as possible, I want the speech bubbles like touching the top, and just try to have all the drawing down below. I don't want a speech bubble, down at someone's belt level. I want what they're saying to be close to their head,
Right.
And again, leave there's almost always gonna, people are taper at the top, right? So there's almost always going to be space for bubbles around heads. So if I make it a rule to put speech bubbles at the top, everything below it's gonna kind of fit better. But I really do just try to simplify it, because at the end of the day, I think what's in the panel is more important than, like, say, the shape of the panel. So I don't really do, spider web shape, panels and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think you'll notice if you looked at my books, you could read like 5 pages in, and then on the 6th page, you'll probably see something a little funky, because I'm like, all right, that was 5 pages of very cut and clean. And then I'm like, all right, maybe a circle panel over here, or maybe I'll drop some gutters or something. So
Sure.
I try to break my own rules, but I do follow some.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just always curious about that stuff. I pretty much have that same rule too. The only time that I put we'll have like a speech bubble like at the bottom of a panel is if the speech is reacting to something that is happening, so you see the action first before the reply to it or whatever. But this drawing you made into a hat, right?
I did a shirt with it. Yeah.
A shirt is a shirt. Yeah.
I was like,
Laser Wolf Attack is like your other company that you have that is like you do toys and like hats and gear and stuff with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I love this. It just like goes over the top of him and melts this guy.
It's simple, like almost childlike logic. You just a skeleton.
It's the most brutal part of the whole book, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's as violent. That's as violent as it gets.
I love these people running away too, because they're so like, that's not what our focus is supposed to be. As long as we know that there are people running away, these are what
them
we're
all the
supposed to be
same.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of drew the people almost like they're like stop motion puppets or something.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not a character, I didn't spend like any time on beyond just like posing them.
Yeah. So we get to take a look. Here's Snarlagon. Yeah, your shading on this, the way that you did the gouache wash is just gorgeous, man. It's just your lighting is just. Did you make like a model or anything, or did you just go with it?
I just kind of went with it. I do create, some rules and things like, um, I do create like little rules and guides for myself. So like to me, it's like he has kind of a specific. It's like oh, his elbows are a ball. He's got
Yeah.
like 3 tubes before you get to the wrist, things like that, and like the even around like the head, the way the scales are laid out, it's like okay, there's one ring around his mouth for lips, but then the other scales kind of follow the shape of his eye until you reach under it, or under his jaw. It's like there's always
Yeah.
3 extra large scales for his eyebrow. The eyebrow is straight. There's a straight line from his nose to the end of his head spike. So I have these little rules that kind of exist in the structure. But no, I didn't like do a model really with it.
Yeah, to like check for lighting or anything, because the lighting is just like fantastic.
Well, I kind of create things that have pretty simple shapes. So I think you can just, where it is made out of smooth, tubes and balls and things like that. I think it's just a little bit easier to kind of wrap your head around what lighting would actually work like. What it's actually going to do. It's not like clothes with like wrinkles and all this craziness.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. Although I wouldn't have thought to do like this double blotch of light, like just, oh yeah, I don't know. You really nailed it, man.
Thanks, dude. That drawing
you had an art show too with these pages, didn't you?
Yeah. After the book tour, we did a show. We weren't able to hang them all because it was just too many pieces of art. But
Yeah.
I really tried to show all the ones that have like good monster drawings in it.
Yeah, for sure. I love how this is done in white, the end of the gun, because it's and hissing because it's so hot. Great idea, man. Yeah, these spreads are just insane. And the pacing is just incredible. I wanted to point this one out, how I love it, how you have no holding line here at all for these guys with the like atmospheric perspective, and you pushed them back. Yeah. Like that's, you really thought this thing out as you were doing it. And it just shows.
I wanted it to be, like I said, art indulgent. Like it was about how fun these movies are to look at. And honestly, that panel was, I think, I struggled the most with that panel. I knew that I wanted that to be, Snarlagon throwing, one of these things. And so I was like, how do you do it? How do you do it in a fun way or whatever? But I don't know what it was. Sometimes it just takes a lot of tries to get it right. But it is strange how sometimes the panels that I struggle on the most will end up being, the ones that are the best. Because I think that panel might be my favorite. It's certainly up there. And I tried to draw a lot of these things thinking of how they would make a movie on a set or whatever. So like this one, if you look at those buildings that are in black that come out of the clouds of dust, like the perspectives are really wonky on it. And I was thinking about if they had just painted, say, either a flat cardboard cutout or painted a cityscape like on a wall. So I was like, all right, these ones aren't, say, cardboard boxes on a set. This is a flat piece of art, So I tried to do silly things like that.
It just, it lends to the whole vibe of the whole thing, because as you're going through it, the whole thing really does just feel like, one of those movies. Even down to like this big like, action jump shot, you can almost feel like how, this would be fake and shot like on a green screen behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a few places where I was kind of trying to mimic like a forced perspective kind of thing. Like they would have shot, like you can watch like, old Godzilla movies where it's like you're watching, say, King Ghidorah fly through a city. It's so obvious to us.
Yeah.
You've got in the foreground, you've got people running, and then you've got like some buildings, but then beyond the buildings, where you see King Ghidorah flying, it's now another shot. They've overlaid, they've
Yeah.
overlaid these two different shots to kind of work together. So I tried to draw some of it like it would feel that way, like it wasn't in a real space, it was in this created space.
Yeah. I love this. After the story's over, you do this behind the scenes thing, which is just fantastic. Like you got the like the movie poster, but then you got like the people working on the set. Brilliant, man. Like pulling these things up.
And that's really one of the things. It drives Aaron nuts, but I like when we're watching TV or whatever, I'm endlessly fascinated about like, how did they make this? I love knowing how things are made. We're artists, right? That's our job. So that's what we think about. And so for me, watching, kaiju movies and thinking about that is as much fun as the story or the characters. And so that, wanting to draw this book was, wanting to draw that as well, was to think about, hey, this is an art form. These old kaiju movies, this is an art form that's handmade,
Yeah. And they're spraying like the smoke into it and everything. It's just so cool. The guy driving to the set. I love it, man. I just love it so much. I mean, are you gonna make more of these, or was this a one shot, do you think, or how are you feeling about it?
I mean, it was always intended to be a one shot. I know that, for me, Headlopper is like the ongoing project. Sure. Anytime that I kind of develop an idea like this, there's a whole library of ideas that just don't make it. So I do have a cast of characters and other monsters, that just didn't make the cut. So maybe I've got the ideas, but who knows if I'll ever get to it. I knew going into it that I was like, I got to get back to Headlopper, when I was done with this, and I'm super excited to be working on it again. But that said, I'd be super excited to make more Snarlagon too.
Right. Well, do a couple of Headloppers and then sneak a Snarlagon in between there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for what this was, and I loved how you went on like a cross country tour with the thing, and like you had a giant cutout of it. You're really just trying to do something completely different, and that's the people remember, and the people who succeed, the people who aren't just following the regular old path, and trying to do things for themselves. And sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. It seems like you were pretty successful with this thing. I mean, I think you're almost sold out, right?
Yeah, I mean, we sold a lot of books. It's really expensive to do a cross-country book tour, but I also knew, I was like, well, look, we're gonna publish this ourselves. Like, we're gonna be the distributor, we're gonna be the people marketing it and stuff. And so I was like, I want this book. It's not gonna reach as many hands as Headlopper, that is has the power of a larger company behind it. Right. But I was still like, well, I still want to make sure that I get out there. And so as much as, doing all the signings, is for the books that you sell in hand, it's also for, saying thank you to the shops for picking up the book, picking up Headlopper and Apocalyptic Girl in the past. And for the people who can't, who maybe can't, lives in a state that we didn't visit, maybe they get excited just watching the journey online or whatever, and get them excited about, checking out the book themselves. So it's like, I think if you do a trip that's that big, you have, there's so many hotel rooms and tanks of gas that aren't directly linked to a signing event that I don't know. We maybe broke even. I'm not sure. Right. It's probably better not to do the math out, but it was a ton of fun, and it was a cool adventure to do. That's like, it was fun to get silly with it. We made like a little cardboard cutout thing. So all the sites that we'd stop at, I would take photos of Snarlagon visiting, Mount Rushmore. And again, I'm a nerd for that handmade stuff. So I got such a kick out of being like, how do I to scale, make Snarlagon look big, you know, at an arm's length away. Like it's just silly fun, and hopefully, you know, people got excited about, you know, the project. You know, watching us do it. I mean, it's purely a passion project. I've been lucky in that, you know, like Headlopper, you know, is also a passion project. But I went into this being like, I want to create something that's kind of small and special, and it doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be this massive thing with, you know, massive expectations or bring in, you know, a truckload of money or whatever. Like I gave myself permission to do something kind of small and as much as I could manage, not stress about it. Like too often you know, when you make art your job, it's a blessing, it's a luxury, but there's a lot of pressure involved because now like this thing that you grew up doing as a habit, as a hobby, you know, that's just a passion. It's now something that needs to make money. And then if you make a cup, and like with Headlopper, I adore it, but it's also kind of like, you know, I made a few of them, so you feel a little bit of expectation when, you know, something becomes, someone's like, oh, when's the next one or something like that, or like, or if they liked it, like you build it up in your own mind. You know how it is to be a neurotic artist. And I was like, oh, if I do this love letter to Kaiju and I just do it all by myself, I don't pitch it, like maybe I can keep it small and remind myself like what it is to do something just for the fun of it. I was like, I'll make it a product after I'm done drawing it. Then it can be a product. But until then, it's just mine. It's just for fun, you know, and that was kind of part of the goal, is to like try to step back and enjoy the process and try to pretend that it's not going to be a product someday, even though you know that day will come.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, our conversations throughout the whole thing, you know, when you would tell me things like that, were really inspiring to me too. Like it made me think about, you know, taking a step back and working on something for yourself. I mean, part of through the Three-Headed Pigman thing, you know, came about because I was thinking about the way that you're doing things with your career and stuff like that. So I got to thank you for that.
I think we do our best work that way, you know?
Yeah, we do. It's really true. And, you know, people pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
Snarlagon also had an interesting thing that was happening where it came out at like about the same time as Godzilla, the new Godzilla movie. And then you wrote a Godzilla series for IDW that Jake Smith drew, which also came out like around the same time. So there was all this sort of like Godzilla kaiju stuff going on, and that inspired me to go back like after I saw the movie, and then I saw these, and I was like, well, I got to go back and start watching all the stuff that I haven't seen since. And so I went on a whole other journey, you know, partially thanks to you too. So that was a lot of fun.
It was not planned at all. I like even the Godzilla thing IDW I did. I was probably halfway through drawing this when they asked me to draw a cover. And it dawned on me, I'm like, I'm such a huge kaiju fan, and yet it never occurred to me to pitch IDW a story. And I was already drawing Snarlagon, so I was right from the get-go, I was like, well, I'd love to do a Godzilla thing, but I don't want to draw two kaiju things at the same time, and I want to get back to Headlopper. So I pitched him. I was like, hey, can I pitch you a story as a writer? And again, it was like serendipity, because they're like, oh, we're about to send all of our new Godzilla pitches to Toho for like all of next year's books. Like if you want to give us a pitch, we will be able to send it directly to them like right now. And I've loved, you know, Godzilla so long that coming up with a story happened so fast. I knew exactly the types of things I would want to try to do with it. And so my pitch document was like hyper detailed, and so to my surprise, they approved it pretty fast, and they're like, go ahead, just get started. And I had created such detail in my pitch document that for the rest of the series, I just copied it. Like I made a script, but I had already plotted out what happened in each issue. So each time it's time to write the next issue, I just like grabbed up my pitch document and just followed it like an outline. It happened so easy and so fast. And next thing you know, I think the Godzilla series was somehow coming out before like Snarlagon was. I don't know
Yeah.
how it came out so fast. I've never had anything happen that fast. And again, Jake was I gave them IDW a list of artists, but I knew that Jake was an artist I love, and also he loved, Godzilla and a
Yeah.
lot of the same monsters that I love because I'd seen him draw them.
Yeah. He was doing those posters for a while.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, dude, this guy loves this, like, because I like the '60s, '70s, like kind of like campy stuff, and I could tell he did too based on his choices. And so, and it just worked out. He was wrapping something up and didn't have his next project, so like I couldn't have planned it better than that, honestly. And sometimes it just works.
It's all just serendipity. Just
Yeah,
everything just flowed into each other. It was perfect
yeah,
timing for everything.
it just came right out. It was nuts.
You said you still have a couple copies of these somewhere?
I do, yeah. I have a reprint in the works right now.
Okay.
I have been working on some Snarlagon. They're not ready, of course, but I've been working on some Snarlagon toys.
Ooh.
There's a reprint of the book coming, and we'll see. I haven't decided if I want to kickstart the toys or not, but I want to do. If I do, I want to do like a special edition, like toy release of the book. Probably
Yeah.
with a new cover, maybe like
Sure.
red tinted or something, maybe hardcover. I'm not sure, but I want to make there to be a very limited edition version of the book for people who also pick up the toys.
Or go small and it comes with it, like i.e.
Very
He-Man.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fun. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That's
I love it.
awesome, man.
So yeah, I want to do something with it. But
I want to see a stop motion Snarlagon movie. So
me too. Me too. I think you can tell I love stop motion. I've always, and when I was a kid, it was claymation. That's what I
yeah,
called it.
claymation. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But man, that would be a dream come true for sure.
Man. You hear that, people who can make that happen? Make it happen. Awesome. All right, man. Well, I got all your info up here and it'll be in the show notes too, but where can people reach out to find you?
There's artofandrewmaclean.com, especially for things like schedules for if I'm doing conventions and things, where you want to like email me, you can email me through there. All my merchandise and everything that I sell. So if you want to pick up Snarlagon, or if you're missing, a volume of Headlopper or something, you can get that on laserwolfattack.com. A lot of that stuff comes autographed, or you want a Headlopper t-shirt, that stuff's all up on there. But for social media, I mostly use Instagram, which is just my name, Andrew MacLean. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at online.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for stopping by and talking about this. I had some questions, and then you answered them.
We got to the bottom of it, I hope.
Yeah,
I had
exactly.
a blast. I always love talking to you. It was so much fun.
Yeah, dude. Well, we'll talk next time when maybe when Agatha or the next volume of Headlopper come out.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
All
the
right,
Agatha Headlopper prequel is probably only maybe 2 months or so. I'm
Okay.
basically done with it, so let's do it.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good, buddy.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
Join my Patreon to see my work before anyone else. Plus, score physical sketchbooks, mini comics, and commissions delivered right to your door. And reading my new books, Something Seems Off and Three-Headed Pigman, as they are made. Go to my website to order original art, commissions, and my books, Lost Angels, Spectral: A Showcase of Fear, Chaotic Neutral, and more. Gray Matter Drip, The Art of Chris Anderson, is available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Here are the upcoming conventions I'll be at the time of this recording. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps spread the word. Thanks.